miles on a single tank of fuel. And, it's pretty damn expensive, right? This is in the US. In India, it'll cost you probably much more, So, hang on, I've lost this. Oops. So what is this? This is the Tesla. And guess what? It can do 0 to 100 in 4.4 seconds. It can seat 5 adults, okay? And it has a range of 300 miles, and it only costs $50,000, okay? So now let's take a look at it inside. And this is a car that's available on the streets. I drove in one last week, okay? It's available today in California, and it's available for this much. And the tax is only 5%, so I'm not like giving you some story, right? It's actually there. This car actually does everything I'm telling you here, right? And look at the performance benchmarks against the Ferrari. You would not be able to tell that 0.4 second difference getting to 100 miles an hour. You'd be terrified in both, okay? If you were going that fast, right? And the mileage difference is not much different. But guess what? Take a look at the luxury inside the Tesla. The Ferrari, I tell you, while it looks cool, it's completely uncomfortable. It's like a sports car. It's very low. It's not a sedan. This is like the ultimate luxury sedan. And you can go, you remember the performance, right? Take a look at the dashboard. It's an LCD panel. It's totally touch. Everything in this car is touch, right? Literally. And there's there's like, other than the USB ports at the front, they got like 4 USB ports in the front. And, they thought about it. They put 4 in there because they knew everybody need USB ports, right? Look at the boot. Pretty big boot, right? Not bad. Nice space. You can take the whole family. You can pack some suitcases. Guess what? You have a boot in the front, too. That's pretty nice, right? Wow. How do you have a boot in both sides of the car? You saw the inside of the car. It's pretty luxurious. Hey, look at the roof. It's a pure glass roof. And guess what? It can be automatically, the chromatic can be set digitally. So at night, it can go into tint mode. During day, you can like set your tint levels automatically. It's got a special fiber in it that is automatically controlled, right? You can even change the tint in the back for the back seat people, the front seat people, all of that, right? It's full glass, the whole roof, okay, except for a roll cage. There's no door handles. You just touch, and it knows your hand. It opens the door, right? And that's the key. It's just like a mouse. Again, it's touch, and it knows. That's the engine and the batteries. It's an electric car, and that's the whole car. It's everything in the car, right? That's everything else I showed you was just frames, seats, and gadgetry, right? And that's it. So, I use this example often to kind of tell people, just think, Elon Musk built this company, Tesla, right? He's a serial entrepreneur who thinks beyond belief. When people told him this car was impossible, and they told him 10 times it's impossible, right? He kept going at it, and he said, no, we're going to build this, right? And this is the guy who did PayPal. He's done a bunch of things, right? He's done a bunch of things that are really, truly disruptive, right? But this is just inspirational. I'm not saying you can necessarily build a Tesla yourself, or you should, but in your own way, you can apply the same principles, right? Of thinking out of the box, right? So in this new world, right, design will definitely disrupt, okay? So I think I'm running low on time here. So that's 15 minutes to go. Okay, so let's rush now, because I got a few more slides. So while breakthroughs, you start to see, about 50 years ago, you could dream of something, and before it became a reality, it would take 40 years. Okay? Guess what's happening? You can now start dreaming about something, and it doesn't take that long before it's a reality, okay? And it's going to get to the point where you almost can't dream, right? Because, when you start to dream, it's almost there. Or you have a hard time dreaming up something that's like, the next big thing, right? It gets to that point. So, there's a whole bunch of, in the interest of time, I'm just going to fly through these. The wild breakthroughs happening, all of these are cloud-enabled. Many of these are going to be mobile-enabled, okay? In all kinds of areas. So let's just take a look at one. Again, I want to just kind of, for shock value, this is something I like. It's big data. It's all about computational stuff, right? The enhanced human being, right? So look at the cost of reading and writing genomes. It's dropped dramatically. Okay, so the sequencing of the DNA genome, the genome sequence, all of that, right? that whole, the bioinformatics around all of that, the costs of doing that now have dropped dramatically because of compute. And that's going to have radical changes. So, you can start thinking about, your next programming language being DNA, right, in some sense. We can start to build forget about Ruby and forget about, Erlang and Python or whatever cool new language out there, right? Start talking, DNA sequencing and the new languages that will drive this, right? This will be the new frontier. If you want to jump 20 years ahead, right, you better get onto this bandwagon, right? And you've already got genome compilers. People are building whole systems for doing this, right? You can print DNA. They're soon going to be able to print organs, 3D print organs, right, that can be implanted in people with literally life-like capabilities, right? And that's a huge improvement. So look at this. The difference between a chimp and a human being, okay, the two ends of the spectrum is only 1% difference in the DNA. And with all our compute, what difference would the next 1% make, right? If we can change 1 more percent, what might happen, right? And I just leave that for food for thought, right? It's not a lot. You don't need to do a lot, okay? There's only that much difference. So anyway, I have a few slides in the India story. I'll race through these. I'm not going to be able to do justice to them, so I'll go fast. This is the story. Billion people, great diversity. Fourth largest economy in the world. 600 million people. 65% of India's population is under 35, so we're very young. Millions and millions of phones. We all know that, right? Fourth largest pool of engineers in the world, right? Great. This is what I hear when I talk to investors, right? When I go to the Valley, I talk to people, they're like, what's going on in India? This is the story I tell them, right? So, great demand for all this stuff. We all know everything's going great there. Largest talent pool in the world, so-called, right? Opportunity, investors are coming from everywhere, we claim, right? And, we're going to become a economic superpower, right? And, it's all true, but the reality is mixed, right? We all know that. I mean, for me at least, I kind of give people, I still haven't seen world-class innovation coming out of India. Truly world-class innovation. For all of that you said before, if nano is the only thing somebody can bring up, please. It's like, I understand it's great innovation and everything, 1 lakh car or whatever, but it's not the Tesla for me, right? I mean, and I'm not belittling the nano at all, okay? I'm just saying that's only one example. I mean, you can name all the examples on like 1 hand, maybe 2 hands, okay? And we just not got enough of that. And we need to have a lot more, right? I'm not being critical, I'm just being kind of realistic about where we are at, right? And so this is one area. I think VC investments, people say, oh, there's lots of VC stuff going on, lots of stuff going on, the startup ecosystem, great, but very few exits, okay? Literally very few exits. And what worries me is if my own company shows up on this list, I'm like, gosh, it cannot be, right? There must be a lot more exits than this, right? There have to be many, many more. And the list is very small. It actually is very small of acquisitions that have happened. IPOs, name me all the tech IPOs that you can think about. I mean, Israel has 250 companies on the NASDAQ. Israel, 6 million people, not even Bangalore's population. Not everybody in Israel is a techie. So only a small portion of them are techies, right? And they've taken 250 companies IPO on NASDAQ. I mean, where is India, right? I mean, listen, and it's us in this room. We need to all go out and fix this, right? There's some good, everybody will come back with they'll name these names. I say, yeah, very good, There's lots of billion-dollar valuations out there. But, that's fine, And I think it's promising. Oh, by the way, there's going to be a huge tectonic shift in IT-enabled services. And I don't mean to be, again, a downer here. I'm just being realistic. Think about it. Everything's going to the cloud. Everything's going paperless. There's no big monolith systems. There's no ERP integration projects. There's no big SAP integration projects. There's definitely no Y2K, right? There's certainly no, even your airline, you don't even have an agent now. Where's the BPO? I don't want to speak to a person, right? I just want something to happen autonomically. I book my tickets online. The whole airline agents, those guys have been decimated, right? If you had anybody answering a call center, if you try and talk to an airline today, it's almost impossible, right? To talk to them. They just expect you to come to the airport or do it online. Cancel online, book online, print your boarding card online, right? Very, very soon, within next year, your boarding card will be on your smartphone, right? You'll have to put it there. I mean, I can already do it in San Francisco and in London. My boarding card today was on my smartphone, right? I just show my smartphone, walk in, right? And that's it. So that's going to happen. And it's becoming a flat world. People are chasing the next lower thing, Philippines, China, whatever. But India still represents a huge opportunity, okay? So I don't want to leave you on that downer, okay? So, there's like huge numbers of internet users, It's just massive. Our population is our biggest thing, and I'll show you in the next slide why that matters, right? So wireless subscribers, the number of mobile subscribers, all great. And in fact, if you can win in India, you can win anywhere in the world because our price points, everything are so low, right? So, people predict by 2050, China and India will be on top. And that's great. So it's a great time to be building something in India, to be innovating in India, right? And guess what? Look at this chart. This is the history of the world's GDP for the last 2,000 years, done by some researcher at some big university, right? And I have the reference somewhere, okay? And look at the two bars. The brown is China, and the light pinkish thing is India. For 1,800 years, those two bars represented most of the world's GDP. Then guess what happened? Industrial revolution happened. And the chart went down. Because why? Size didn't matter anymore. Okay? Leverage mattered, right? Productivity mattered. Then the information revolution happened. And it went down further. You see 1970s, right? It went down further. But guess what? It's now starting to trend back up. So the natural line is for India and China for size to matter again, right? We will produce, combined, most of what the whole world consumes, and we will consume most of what we produce, right? So think about those two sentences. We will produce most of what the world consumes, and we will produce most of what we produce, right? Ourselves. And that's going to be tremendous opportunity, right, for both countries. So this graph is just tending up over time. Because why? Information is everywhere, right? The world has become flat again. We've got the same technology they have, that they had in Britain, in the US, right? And in Japan. In fact, Japan, US, and Britain are now uncompetitive. We're leapfrogging. We're going straight to 4G networks, right? We're going straight to the cloud, hopefully. We're going straight to SaaS systems. Forget about all those legacy IT systems, right? Let's go straight to the most efficient, on-demand resource available, right? And so we've got a huge opportunity there going forward. So I'll close with a couple of things. Massive amount of change coming for people who are worried about their careers. This is one thing you've got to really think through, which is everything's going to keep changing every 6 months to 12 months to 18 months, right? And be prepared for that, because that's the way the world's going to be now, okay? And you're going to have to deal with the VUCA world, which is essentially volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. Do I have 5 more minutes? Okay, great. So, these are the 4 things that I think about, which is there's going to be a lot of volatility, and there's going to be uncertainty, right? Which is you're not going to be able to make any decisions and actually stick with them. So you might say, I want to work at company X, or I want to be a Java programmer, right? Or whatever, and I'm going to become good at this. Believe me, there's not going to be any Java programmers 8 years from now, okay? So you better start thinking, right? I mean, it'll become like COBOL programmers, right? So, I'm not saying you should get out of a Java job today, but just start thinking, right? And complexity, there's like lots of complexity. You'd say, do I do this or do I do that? Or do I work for this company or that company? Do I stay in the same company for long periods of time? Do I do a startup? Do I go do, whatever, right? There's a bunch of things that, you need to decide. And ambiguity, which is nobody's going to be able to give you good advice. Which means you're on your own, right? Really. I mean, you can go talk to all the smart people, but they don't know nothing. They're just as confused, right? So it's really hard to give advice to anybody. In fact, most people come to me and say, I can't tell you anything, right? It's like, yeah, I know a lot, but you know more than me or as much as I do, right? And how can I predict the future? That's what everybody's trying to figure out, right? And, I don't know if what you're doing now is going to be useful, right? So then you come back, okay, so a few predictions. Just for, okay, that's all great funda, gyan stuff. Now tell us something's real, which is, I'd say start thinking asynchronous, right? In some sense, start thinking distributed, okay? Start thinking mobile, start thinking cloud, okay? Start thinking, if you're a developer or you're an architect or you're a manager, start thinking like that, right? Think about kind of the more agile, Scrum-like processes. Please don't, if anybody in this room is using waterfall, kill it tomorrow, okay? And literally, if you do that, it's all become very, very thing. And open source, latch on to this in a big way. It's going to be a huge trend going forward. And then you've got to think through optionality. That whole ambiguity thing I talked about earlier, you've got to be able to make decisions as a manager, as an engineer, as a designer, whatever. Be able to think through these things, be able to iterate fast, fail fast, cycle fast. Software become like fashion.
1 p.m.
So software become like fashion. You've got to be able to kind of get going. Okay, last couple of slides. Sorry. So I'll just leave you with one final thought. And this is a professor I had at school. So I was an undergrad at the University of Pennsylvania, and I was in this economics class, and this professor was a very famous professor. He's actually a Nobel Prize winner in 1980 for econometrics at the Wharton School. And so, I was admitted to this honors program, and, he actually shows up for only a few of the classes because he's very busy. He was on some Carter's economic thing and this thing and that thing. So every now and then he'd show up, but he showed up for the last class, right? And we all asked him the same question: what guidance do you have for us? You're a famous professor, and things like that. So he gave us 4 bullet points, and I'll kind of repeat them here for you. And they really stuck with me for a long time, right? He said, people matter most. He says, all this ambiguity is fine, but please associate with great people, because that's not going to change. The great people are going to be great regardless of the circumstances, and regardless of what chaos is going around you, what opportunities are there. So if your team is great, he gave me a subtle sub-point. He says, always make sure you really know who your boss is, or who's going to mentor you, who you're going to actively work with, right? So make sure they're really smart, and make sure you hire people who are smarter than you are, right, for your teams. And that's hard to do. He was always like, it's very hard to always hire people smarter than you, but that's really, and it goes almost like a cliche, but it's very important, okay? And then the second thing he said is, results have to be disproportionately better than effort. Now, what does that mean? Just because you tried, nobody cares. Okay? They might give you a pat on the back, but when you leave the room, they don't care. Results matter, okay? So very important to understand that. It's very, very important. You can disillusion yourself very quickly by putting in effort. And you think, I did all this work, but if there's no results. So think through fast. Think through 6 months from now. Are you doing something that's going to produce results? If it's not, stop putting the effort in. There's no point, right? Because nobody's going to give you credit for it. And think through what results will be viewed as awesome, and work backwards from there, right? Because that's the way you should think through life. And then follow your passion. If you're not getting up in the morning and wanting to go to work or do whatever you're doing, then go do something else. You're well-educated, you have so many choices. You shouldn't make life a drag, right? It really doesn't matter. It doesn't cost that much to live. It's our desires that keep us hostage, right? Because we desire a bigger car, a bigger home, we make compromises on the passion side of things, right? Really badly, And then the final thing was really enjoy the ride, right? Because that's very important, okay? So anybody wants to contact me, here's my coordinates. You can reach out. I'm glad to connect with anybody on LinkedIn.